The old pickup rumbled down a gravel road, headlights slicing through the dense fog. Josh hadn't seen Mason in years, not since high school, but when the invitation came out of the blue, something about it felt necessary. One weekend, Mason had said. Just us and the woods, like old times. They arrived just before sunset. The forest was vast and untouched, towering pines stretching endlessly in every direction. The campsite sat on the edge of a forgotten trail, surrounded by silence too complete to be natural. Even the birds seemed to avoid this place. A weathered gas station attendant, the last stop before the tree line, had stared too long when Josh mentioned where they were headed. "Don't stay past dark," the man warned, eyes narrowed. "Those woods, they remember things." Josh laughed it off. Mason didn't. As night fell, a biting chill settled over the forest. They built a small fire and shared stories under the stars, the warmth of nostalgia hiding the creeping unease. But as the flames crackled, a sound rose from deep within the woods, soft at first. Drums. Then low chanting. Rhythmic. Ancient. Mason froze. "Locals doing a ritual or something," he said with a shaky chuckle. Then he got up. "Gonna take a leak." He never came back. Minutes turned into an hour. Josh called out, flashlight scanning between the trees. Nothing. Only the wind, and the drums, growing louder. Closer. Then, movement. Between the pines, just beyond the glow of the firelight, figures emerged. Tall. Silent. Cloaked in black, faces hidden beneath shadowed hoods. They glided rather than walked, weaving between trees like smoke. Josh backed away, breath caught in his throat, heart pounding like war drums in his chest. One figure stopped, and looked directly at him. No words. Just the whisper of pine needles as the forest closed in. To be continued. Josh jolted awake to silence. The fire was dead, just glowing coals nestled in ash. The morning fog hadn't lifted, it hung dense and low, curling between trees like smoke. Mason was still gone. But something had changed. The ground around the tent was disturbed. Circles drawn into the soil with sharp, clean lines, symbols Josh didn't recognize. Twisting spirals, intersecting triangles, all etched with surgical precision. And worse, on his sleeping bag, in fine gray ash, a single mark, a crude eye with a slit pupil. It hadn't been there the night before. Panic swelled in Josh's chest. He packed quickly, grabbed his flashlight, compass, and phone. No signal. He followed the trail they'd used to arrive, but it was gone. The forest around him looked the same in every direction. No footprints. No path. Like the forest had swallowed it whole. He shouted Mason's name again and again, but only his echo answered. Hours passed. Or maybe it was minutes. Time warped in that place. Near midday, Josh stumbled across a weathered tree with a hollow trunk. Inside, wrapped in a damp cloth, was a journal, old, pages brittle with age. The first few entries were mundane, hikes, wildlife, foraging tips. Then came frantic handwriting. Sketches of symbols, the same ones now etched outside his tent. One entry read. They mark you first. It means they've seen you. If you see the sigils, it's already too late. Suddenly, Josh heard rustling. He ducked low behind the tree, holding his breath. Through the mist, a shape moved, tall, robed, drifting silently across the forest floor. Then another. No footsteps. No voices. Just the soft jingle of bone or metal hanging from beneath their sleeves. Josh turned to run, Twigs snapped beneath his feet, but a figure was already there. Just standing, watching. Its hood swayed slightly in the breeze. Josh couldn't see its face, just a faint red glow where eyes should be. He bolted, lungs burning, crashing through brush and branches. He didn't stop until the drums returned, louder this time, deeper. The forest wasn't just watching anymore. It was closing in. To be continued. Josh's legs ached as he pushed through the endless woods, branches clawing at his clothes like skeletal fingers. The mist never lifted. It only thickened, pressing against his skin like damp cotton. Every direction looked the same, dark trees, twisted roots, and silence broken only by the occasional, distant drumbeat. And then, he found the clearing. It opened suddenly, like the forest had parted intentionally. A wide, circular space, flattened unnaturally, its center dominated by a grotesque wooden effigy. The towering figure was made of bones, branches, and torn cloth, shaped like a human, but exaggerated, hunched, arms stretched unnaturally wide. At its base, black stones formed a ritual circle, smeared with dried blood. Josh dropped low, heart thundering in his chest. He wasn't alone. Figures emerged from the tree-lean, silent and deliberate. Each one cloaked in black, faces hidden behind carved wooden masks. They moved with eerie synchronicity, forming a circle around the effigy. One of them stepped forward, the tallest. Their mask was different, it had no eyes, only a wide, unnatural smile carved into the wood. The leader raised their arms, and the chanting began. Low. Ancient. In a language Josh didn't understand, but something primal inside him recoiled. It was wrong, deeply wrong, as if the forest itself was vibrating with the sound. Then he saw him. Mason, barely conscious, tied to a stone slab just outside the circle. Pale, weak, but alive. Josh's breath caught in his throat. He moved to rush forward but froze as the leader pulled something from beneath their robe, a dagger carved entirely from bone. The chanting grew louder. Josh stepped back, heart hammering, when a dry twig cracked beneath his foot. Instant silence. Dozens of heads snapped in his direction. A second later, the woods exploded in motion, figures darting toward him, cloaks whipping, voices shrieking in unison like animals. Josh turned and ran, lungs burning, branches tearing at his skin. Behind him, the drums returned, closer than ever, now beating in sync with the rhythm of his own panic. He didn't stop until he reached a small cave tucked into the side of a moss-covered hill. He dove inside, darkness swallowing him whole. He waited, holding his breath, listening. But the forest was silent again. Until the whisper came, barely audible, from deep inside the cave. You shouldn't have seen the ritual. To be continued. Josh sat frozen in the blackness of the cave, his back pressed against the cold stone wall. The whisper still echoed in his ears, you shouldn't have seen the ritual. He couldn't tell if it came from within the cave or from the fear clawing inside his mind. The cave stank of damp earth and something older, something dead. He fumbled for his flashlight, hands shaking. When he clicked it on, the beam revealed carvings along the cave walls. Symbols. The same as those around the tent. Around the clearing. Some smeared in what looked like old blood. Others, fresh. He wasn't the first to hide here. On the ground, he found scraps of clothing, bones, a broken camera. A warning left behind by someone who hadn't made it out. Suddenly, drums again. They were closer now, pounding like war calls. Shadows flickered outside the cave, cast by torchlight. Josh knew he couldn't stay. He crawled through a narrow crevice at the back of the cave, squeezing through jagged stone and emerging into a cold downpour. Night had returned. The storm raged above the trees, thunder crashing as if the sky itself was trying to drown out the cult's ritual below. Josh moved quickly, adrenaline pushing him forward. Lightning split the sky, and in its brief flash, he saw them. Figures in the distance, scanning the woods with torches. But this time, he wasn't running blindly. He remembered a hunting cabin they'd passed on the drive up. It was miles back, but it was his only shot. Compass in hand, soaked and exhausted, he moved with purpose. Branches snapped behind him. The cult was tracking him, not just with eyes, but with unnatural senses. He heard strange calls echoing, not human, like animal sounds twisted by something older than the woods. Just before collapsing from exhaustion, he found it. A dilapidated wooden cabin, nearly swallowed by moss and vines. Inside, cobwebs and rot, but also salvation. A rusted survival kit. A flare gun. And on the shelf, a CB radio. Static. Then, a voice. "You're not the first to call from those woods." Josh froze. Before he could respond, the door creaked open behind him. A shadow fell across the floor. To be continued. The shadow loomed in the cabin doorway, tall, unmoving. Josh raised the flare gun with shaking hands, finger hovering over the trigger. A flash of lightning illuminated the figure, a park ranger, soaked and wide-eyed. "Easy," the man barked. "You called for help?" Josh nearly collapsed. Relief hit like a flood. He nodded, barely able to speak. The ranger pulled him out into the rain, half dragging him through the trees to a hidden ATV trail. Josh didn't look back. He didn't need to. He knew they were watching. By morning, Josh sat wrapped in a blanket, staring at a cup of untouched coffee in a ranger station 20 miles from the woods. His story came out in pieces, rituals, symbols, hooded figures. The ranger never interrupted. When Josh finally finished, he asked, "What happened to the friend you came with?" Josh fell silent. "They sent a search party. No sign of Mason. No clearing. No effigy. Even the campsite was gone, as if nature had swallowed it whole. But the journal Josh found? Gone too. Vanished from his pack. The only evidence, a wooden token in Josh's coat pocket, small, circular, and carved with that same slit-eyed symbol. He hadn't put it there. The authorities chalked it up to shock, dehydration, trauma. The case was quietly closed. Weeks passed. Josh tried to return to normal life, but the nightmares came every night. Chanting in the dark. Eyes watching from trees. Sometimes, he'd wake up with dirt under his fingernails. Pine needles in his bed. Once, a circle drawn in ash on his apartment floor. One evening, a package arrived at his door. No return address. Inside, a single black cloth. Wrapped in it, a small wooden mask, smiling with no eyes. And a note. "The forest never forgets." Josh looked out his window. Across the street, in the shadows between the streetlights, a figure stood watching. Still. Silent. Waiting. The end. Or maybe just the beginning.